Kolejo Limited in the UK, and we are a cybersecurity reg tech company. And our focus is on how do we simplify cybersecurity risk management, cybersecurity risk compliance, and operations for both regulators and businesses. So in essence, we are the intersection of public sector and businesses when it comes to cybersecurity risk. Prior to that, I've been in the capacity of a Chief Risk Officer for InterSwitch, Africa's first fintech unicorn. Also, same capacity with the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System. I've got way more years of experience than I should have because I started working at a very young age. But let's just say that officially, I just say it's just over 15. Otherwise, people don't think I'm a 50-something or 60-something-year-old individual. Happy to be here, and I'm sure this is going to be fun.
Fantastic, Koshoke. It's really great to have you. I like the mix that I'm seeing. I'm seeing people from the HR, people from cybersecurity, people who have the business side of it. So I will quickly jump on to Grace. Grace Ayibowu, great to have you. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Linda.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, Regenesis team, my fellow panelists, and of course, our online audience. Thank you for having me. My name is Grace Ayibowu, and as at today, I'm the Head of Human Resources and Administration at SeamlessHR.com Limited. What do we do at Seamless HR? So Seamless HR is an indigenous software development company, and we basically provide end-to-end software that helps businesses optimize their human resources processes so that they can focus on the core or the operational aspect of their businesses. So think about hiring, think about learning and development, think about performance management, think about attendance, think about payroll, whatever it is that is a human resources related process, we provide that resource in form of software. I have been in human resources admin and operations for over 13 years. My first degree is in international law and diplomacy from Babcock University, and my second degree is in security and intelligence studies from the University of Buckingham. And it's amazing how I've come full circle to, find myself in the human resources industry. And it's been amazing. I'm looking forward to this conversation, looking forward to learning, and looking forward to speaking to everyone here. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you. It's really amazing having all of you in the panel. So I'll go now to my colleagues at Regenesis. We have a whole team of people behind us, but for the purpose of being on the panel, I have Akingbade Adewolu. He is our business development manager. He will briefly be saying hi and showing his face because he will be engaging with you further. Akin, can we see your face and say hi to our panelists?
Good morning, everybody. So sorry, I'm on the move. I'm actually about to enter a meeting, but it's a privilege having you guys around. I know that we have an avalanche of wisdom and experiences here. And though I'll still be at the background, I'll be listening, I'll be learning, I'll be unlearning as well. So I know we are in for a wonderful time. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. And we are ready to learn from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aki. Aki is a typical businessman. He's on the move, you understand? So please, we understand and we pardon you. Aki, thank you for your time. So over and out for you now. Thank you. So I will now be passing on to our country director, Linda Kotsi. She heads up the Regenesis business, the entire Regenesis business in Nigeria. Linda.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, fantastic. Good day, everybody, and welcome to the panel. For those who we can't see as participants who's joined us, welcome as well. Please use the chat function to ask your questions, and the events team is definitely going to monitor that and make sure that your questions are answered. Linda, thank you so much. Linda's going to lead this conversation. I was pulled into another meeting early this morning, so I apologize for that. But Linda, I know that you've done this so many times before. I'll listen to the recording, listen to all of you afterwards, unfortunately. But enjoy the panel, enjoy the knowledge that is around you, and share, because that's what these information sessions are all about. We're very grateful for your time, very grateful for your presence, and for your willingness to share the knowledge that you have that is so specific within an environment that are ever changing. So we're very, very grateful for your presence, for your willingness to help. And Linda, thank you so much for facilitating this session.
Thank you, Linda Coetzee. She's a fantastic country head, and she's a businesswoman, so she needs to rush off to another meeting as well. Thank you. So I'll just do a brief introduction of myself and tell you about Regenesis Business School. My name is Linda Abba. I head up the corporate education space. Where do I start from? I'm really excited being in this particular panel because my background is information technology. I've been in the IT industry for almost 20 years. I graduated from the University of Benin, where I read computer science, and then went on to do my master's. I've worked with major IT companies, including Oracle, where I worked for 10 years, and now I'm more into corporate education, strategy, and business. So it's really a great opportunity to have, will I say, my colleagues somehow in the industry. I'll call you the cream of the cream, really, of the IT industry, because we didn't just stumble into you. We took time to look at your profile. I want to share your wealth of experience. A lot is happening in the IT industry. I think it's one of the most disruptive industries. I want to tap into your wealth of experience. Please permit me to welcome Nkem Delim. Nkem Delim, you're on mute. Welcome on the panel. Can you please introduce yourself and your organization just before we start the questions part?
Sure. Thank you, Linda. And thank you for having me here this morning. My name is Nkem Delim Uwaje Begjo. I'm the CEO of FutureSoft. FutureSoft is an IT service company that focuses on digital marketing and digital transformation consultancy. We develop strategy, integrated marketing communication plans, and also do the implementation for businesses, which I think also part of digital transformation obviously is people. So there's a lot of advisory services that we do around learning and development, people and culture, and how that is changing in the digital space. So, and in this digital era as well. I'm very excited to be here this morning. Thank you.
Great to have you. I think we have everybody we've been expecting, so we have a full house now. We'll just go straight into the question session. But just to reiterate, this session is being recorded and it's going to be available online for people to watch and listen to. So we expect to get a lot from you, and we appreciate your time. We have people online live listening to us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on our LinkedIn pages. So for our audience, we want to say thank you for hooking up. This is basically a knowledge sharing session. I will say it's a way of Regenesis Business School giving back to society, picking people's brain, the think tanks, to find out what is the next big thing, how do people get into the industry, back to society, demystifying people's industry. We've done it for the education industry, we've done it for the hospitality industry, we've done it for the finance industry, we've done it for so many other industries. Now is the turn of the IT industry, and people who are interested in really understanding this industry are hooked up to learn from the experts. Our questions will just come in as a flow in no particular order. Anybody who wants to answer should just please raise up their hands in the chat room, and then we'll take it up from there. So my first question: this IT industry is so big, it's so huge. There is a lot in the IT industry, from network to security to database to, in fact, there's a whole lot. So what can somebody just tell us? What is this industry all about? What is a summary of IT? I'm sure it's like an elephant. People will describe it from different points of view. So I want the panelists to give us from their point of view, what is IT? Anybody who's going first? Yes. Ajibola, are you going in for it? You're on the spotlight.
Hoping that you would shoot the HR related questions to me.
Okay, but yeah, you've been in the industry a long time.
When you think about IT, I think about a world where we make everything simple. And when I speak that simplicity, it's like most things should just be at the click of a button. So everything else that happens in the background, whether it's by the connectivity or the infrastructure you put out there that enables you to do the last mile connectivity to whether it's the building or your machine or your laptop or your phone, whether it's by the applications that you put on your phones that enable people to live an easier, simpler life, whether it is in the physical infrastructure or software, which is not physical, as we all know. That is basically what encompasses information technology. I feel that a more technical-minded person will probably do better justice to this question. But for myself, who's not so much in that field beyond my profession, that's a simple way to look at it. Everything that creates a simpler life, but it's at the click of a button for you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. I think that's very good because not everybody in our audience is IT. So if we allow the technical people to start bombarding us with terminologies, people may disconnect. So it's good we're having you start it up for us. So Grace from the HR side. Yes, Grace, what's IT?
So for me, I mean, literally, information technology. So if I break that down from a human resources perspective, it's basically, first and foremost, making relevant, necessary information available on the level that it needs to be available for different categories of users. It also means harnessing that information or that data and using it to improve lives, like Chibala said, improve lives, improve processes, improve the workplace, improve how human beings interact with one another, how we carry out our functions in a more simple or in a simpler and much less complex way, such that we are connected and we are more efficient, more effective. That's what comes to my mind when I think IT.
Efficiency. Thank you very much. Permit me to tweak this topic. Instead of IT, I'm going to call it ICT because communication is very critical for the IT to run. So we'll go to Samaila. Samaila, over to you, please.
Thank you. I really love the way Ajibola and Grace went about describing it because a lot of people just think of the technical aspect, the technology, like the actual devices. They forget that there are processes involved. They forget the people involved. And so I really appreciate the fact that they brought that to bear. The general things we're looking at here, like they have already mentioned, efficiency is key, the ease of use. Okay. Then we also look at connectivity, like communications, like you just mentioned, the use of the internet. So beyond the devices, how do the devices communicate with each other? From your laptop or from your phone to a Google server to check a website to see what's happening. How does that communication happen? There's a lot of things like within the infrastructure and the network. And so IT cuts across beyond these devices. We're also looking at the tools. We're looking at the skills. So for instance, there are people who have skills that may not necessarily have to do with hardware. People like graphics designers, people that do animation. Okay, so there's that aspect. And there are people that we tend to put
police.
Like the internet police. Some people call us internet megad, where we put a lot of barriers to use. So people like those in HR or legal or accounting may not like us so much because we'll say, oh, don't do this way. Oh, you can't do this. Okay, so there's that aspect of IT as well, where you need to also put checks to make sure people are using things the right way, or people are not exposing themselves to dangers inadvertently or unknowingly. Okay, so IT is actually a very wide industry. And there are even arguments that some things that are blanketed under IT should be in their own industry. For instance, cybersecurity. People believe that cybersecurity should be an industry on its own. I'll leave that for people to decide. But yeah, so IT comes across from these different angles, and there are still many angles not touched on, like the cloud, what we know as cloud today, the emerging technology space, like the use of AI, big data, blockchain and other technologies to simplify life, to make things more trusted and more reliable.
Thank you, Samaila. You started going to the technical place, talking about cloud, talking about big data. We're going to have a lot of all that today. But okay, what is IT? this big elephant they call ICT to the layman, to the person out there?
Well, I think in response to that, one thing we must keep in mind is not to redefine what already exists, right? So that something is complicated to understand does not mean that we call it something else, right? I think we can talk about the application or what we use IT for to make life simpler. But making life simpler cannot, now calling that to be technology, in and of itself, you'll fail the exam, quite frankly, right? Just to be very candid with that. When we're talking about the processes and making life simpler, I think we're moving out from just technology to an information system. And that's where we're bringing discrete resources, right? Both the technology, the people, and the processes, specific use cases, right? So it's in that regard when we're talking about, and I also like the responses earlier around making life simpler, how do I make my work better and all that, right? But that's not talking about integrating technology with people and process, right, to create a system, right? But technology itself, right, information technology, sometimes can be seen as services, other times they could be equipment, or even interconnected systems, right? So think of where, and I think that's where the idea about making my life simpler comes from, or process, right? Because if I have an interconnected system, so the integration or the intersection of people, process, and technology, right? That in itself can sometimes be seen as IT, right? But for the sake of the audience we have here at the business school, it will be somehow, right? If we start suggesting to them that a process is technology. A process cannot be technology, unless that process itself is the execution of the technology. So the tech itself, right? So IT in and of itself, right? It's going to be services, equipment, that's used for, and oftentimes think about automation, right? How do I automatically acquire information? How do I store information or data? How do I analyze information? How do I evaluate information, manipulate information, right? All these things, right, with technology, that is IT. But again, on the other end of that, right, when we now bring people and process to that for a specific use case to deal with a particular problem, making life easier, now we're now leaving that realm of IT or extending into now the realm of an information system. Don't mean to be academic, but again, for the audience we've got over here, if we're telling people that a rose is I don't know, a tulip, they're gonna fail the exam, right? And I'm sure some folks in the audience here have an interest in becoming certified professionals, and so it's important too as well that we're bringing both our aspirations and our experiences with the facts of the matter as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oshoke. Ajibola said, I wish it was a technical person speaking before her, but I like the fact that she brought the soft landing. The end, start from the end, beginning with the end in mind, is about the people, is about making life easier. But the good thing is Oshoke has brought in the technicality about it, that IT really is the systems, the machines, the tools, and then the end result is to make life easier for every one of us. Kendilling, do you want to add something to this before we move on?
I think for me, when I think about technology, right, I think about basically just delivering experiences to users using technology, right? So it's the backbone of virtual experiences. And I think as we go into the metaverse and Web3, we'll see more and more of that evolution happening, right? Where it just becomes a way to deliver the everyday services, interactions, engagements, and sort of exchanges that we have as human beings, right? And it will, I think also that, technology is evolving in so many ways. And, Samaila talked about, sort of the emerging technologies such as AI, blockchain, and stuff like that, right? But they just form, again, the foundation of delivering these services and experiences. I like to say experiences actually more than services, because I think that's really where we're headed, right? So we've also started seeing, sort of like a really big intersection of where digital marketing meets digital transformation, right? So technology and marketing, simply because we're building experiences. So I think that, over the next 10 years, it's going to be a very interesting field that will evolve in many ways, and where technology then will become probably more and more segmented and more specialized when we talk about it, right? But also more and more an everyday thing that we consume, right? So I think all of the definitions are fantastic. And I just wanted to sort of add the perspective of where are we going with this, right? What is the evolution that we're seeing?
Good. There's a lot to unpack in what you have said, and I take out the experience. That takes me to my next question, right? We're hearing the buzz about digital disruption. A lot of trends are happening. So, I mean, how does technology come to change the way we do things? I remember I started my career early in the banking industry, and those days, man, I was a teller. I would have a lot of people in the bank waiting, and sometimes you say the server is down and things like that. But these days, you go into a bank and you're like, where is everybody? They tell you use every alternative channel. And my sister told me, I can't remember when last I went to the bank. I said, I want to get to the bank. She said, to do what? All my services are on my tool. So for the IT people, I'm training to you now. So I'm going to start from you, Kemdilim. You threw the ball. So over to you. How has technology changed the way we do things in different industries with respect to digital disruption?
All right, thank you so much for that question. I think technology has just made things easier, as Ajibola said earlier, right? And I think when we look at it from a digital transformation perspective, we always look at how do we remove friction, right? What are the processes that can be automated? So how do we make things more efficient? How do we save time? How do we have less human error as well, right? So how do you take out that human element and sort of automate what it is that you're trying to deliver? And how do you make it as easy and as seamless and as omni-channel focused as possible for the consumer, right? So as we see technology evolving, a lot of that is driven by consumer behavior evolving, right? So when you think about how a few years ago there wasn't any Uber in Nigeria, right? People would go and stand by the side of the street and try and hail a taxi, right? Or they would have the number of a car hire guy, or there was Red Cab at some point, right, that you could call and they would come and pick you up, right? All of that doesn't exist anymore, simply because there's been a disruption. And today, every single person from, sort of your carpenter can come in an Uber, right? So it's not for a specific type of person anymore, right? It's now open to everyone. So it has democratized access to a way of transporting people, right? So I think when we think about, technology, a lot of it is now driven by that consumer behavior. And we're seeing that happen with everything, right? So if your bank tells you must come into the bank, you probably call them and be shouting at them that these other banks can't do this online. Why am I coming to the branch? You're wasting my time, right? And it's the same with, sort of, I think COVID especially accelerated this, sort of evolution of consumer behavior as well, because now we're like, oh no, we don't need to have physical meetings, right? I'm sure pre-COVID, we would all be sitting in a hall talking to a physical audience, right? And now it means that I can speak anywhere in the world and share my knowledge without leaving my desk, right? And I think that shapes the way that I also look at my time, right? So I then look at it as, oh, this is 1 hour in my calendar, as opposed to I'm taking the entire day off in order to be here and to deliver what it is that I'm saying, right? So my behavior has changed simply because the way that we use technology has changed, right? And as that happens and becomes more and more mainstream, we will see more and more demand for easier processes, seamless customer experience. We'll see more and more push for being able to do the same things across multiple channels, right? So I want to be able to use my preferred channel to do whatever transaction it is that your company offers, right? So whether you're transporting my goods, I maybe don't want you to call me. I just want you to send a message. I may just want you to have an app where I can track the delivery guy, right? And when he comes to my house, he drops it on my doorstep, right? All of these things will continue to shape how technology influences our world, right? And I think we'll see much more of this sort of frictionless delivery of experiences.
Thank you so much. Grace Ayibowu, she mentioned something seamless and less friction. And I want you to talk about how your industry has been disrupted or how you're disrupting the industry with your solution. Grace is from Seamless HR. Tell us what you guys do and how you've disrupted the HR industry.
Thank you very much. I mean, when she mentioned the word seamless, I just, automatically.
That's for you.
And that's why we are in the business. That is why we do what we do. Because if you cast your mind back to the days of personnel management, I mean, Jibala will understand what I'm talking about. Those were the days of tons and tons of paper files. Imagine having to go through files for over 1,000 staff, or having to process payroll for over 50,000 staff, or having to go through an attendance register for 3,000 staff. All that manual process taking away so much time. And that's why what Nkemdili said about how you see your time is different, because if you would have spent, a week going through thousands of papers, right now you can do that in an hour or less. That's just 1 hour in your day. You've got 7, other hours to do different stuff. So for us, I mean, when you talk about the recruitment processes, there are many steps, different steps in the recruitment process. And without technology, those steps have to be initiated, followed through, and closed out by a human being who has the potential to forget, who has the potential to make errors, and who has the potential to miss things, even if they're just, right there in their faces. So for us, for instance, that's just one product, which is our seamless hiring product. It manages the recruitment process from end to end, from shortlisting CVs or candidates, so to even the point of, giving them offer letters, and even managing the process of probation and confirmation just at the click of a button. So you can automate the system while you can actually do the business of providing strategic support, which businesses need HR departments to actually focus on. So our processes or our products, from hiring to performance management to things like checking attendance to be sure that people are clocking in when they're supposed to be clocking in and they're being paid for the hours that they are actually working. All of those things can be automated right from your system. And then you can concentrate on, okay, how can I help the business become more profitable? How can I help our employees be more productive? How can I help them be more fulfilled in their career? How can they be more engaged on the job? So that's just one of the areas that Seamless HR steps in. I mean, our mission is to help businesses in developing or emerging markets optimize their resources and make them to be more productive and more successful. So that is the crux of it for us.
Okay, so thank you so much, Grace. I'm going to come back to the impact of your business. I know you've disrupted HR. So if you had 10 people in HR before, with your disruption now, maybe you are the only one or 2 people. We'll come to that later. So Sumaila, what disruptions are you seeing, or are you bringing, or is your industry bringing to the industry? Every person will give us what disruption, because I know people are eager to know what are the disruptors, and they will talk about what are the future disruptions people should start seeing. So it's each question is bringing forth the next question. So Myla, the disruptors.
Sure, thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Clear, loud and clear.
Awesome. So I like how the conversation is going, especially now that we're talking about the people side of things, because the cybersecurity industry and my HR experts here will agree with me. It's having its own change, just like the wider IT industry had maybe 2-3 years ago, in the sense that we're now having an increase in remote opportunities, an increase in people trying to relocate due to better job offers. There's also I've seen within our space, within the cybersecurity industry, there's a lot of what's this word? Is it attrition, where employees are leaving and moving to other firms. You see someone joins the bank today, within 3 months, another bank is trying to poach that person. Even if he moves, within another 3 to 6 months, another bunch are poached. So we're having a situation where there's a lot of entry-level people and very few mid-level. So we see where people don't want to hire the entry level because they want experts, but the experts are few, and so they're being poached left, right, and center.
Yeah.
So again, back to this issue of relocation, a lot of entry-level people are like, since I can't get a job here, I might as well just go for my master's in the UK or in Canada, or I may apply for some work visa, and if I'm lucky, I get it. So we're having people moving to everywhere in Europe, Canada. It's an interesting time for the HR people because they are being forced to change their things. I know of organizations that they didn't want to hear of anything remote. You must be in the office 5 days a week, and they're interviewing someone. The person tells you, if I have to work more than 2 days a week in the office, I don't want the job. The person is giving you their own terms. And so you're the HR person. I can see Ajibola smiling. You're the HR person. You're hearing that kind of thing from your candidates, and you're like, what do I do? This person has the skills, but their terms are not really with our policy. So you find yourself having to discuss with management. We may need to adjust our policies. Now we have banks that have a lot of their staff working remotely. Even non-cyber people now are working remotely, because at the end of the day, what you want at a company is productivity. Okay, so speaking of the discussion in our industry, we're seeing that issue of the salary scale is now changing for the cyber guys. We're having better pay because people are realizing that cybersecurity is not an IT problem, it's a business problem, because where cybersecurity fails, the whole business suffers.
Yeah.
If a company gets hacked, for instance, there's room for reputational damage, there's room for revenue loss, drop in investor confidence, drop in even customer confidence. If you hear that your bank has been hacked, I assure everyone on this call, if next minute you're
money
from that bank. Okay, so I think we're finally trying to realize that cybersecurity is everybody's problem, and it's a business driver. It's as important as the infrastructure you're buying. It's as important as the people you're hiring. So I think there's that change in thinking, there's that change in process, and there's some leverage for the cyber guys to now demand for either better remuneration or better treatment and better working conditions. Everything is kind of changing. I just hope, I'm happy we have HR people. I just hope that something that needs to change soon is the acceptance of people with entry-level skills. A lot of companies just want the experts, but if you don't hire these entry-level guys, who will grow to become the experts? So that's something, and this is like a charge, if I may use that word, for us to consider people, because a lot of things can be learned. Some technical skills can be learned quickly. What may be an issue may be the soft skills, okay, and the compatibility with the existing team members. So let's just try to give let's try to help the industry by hiring these fresh people that are coming into the industry. Thank you.
I like the advocacy coming in from Sumaila, and I'm sure some people in the audience are already clapping for him, because that's the kind of questions we keep having. The young people, how do we break into the industry? IT industry is a very interesting industry, but it's so experience sensitive. And I think as an educator, a corporate educator, that's where the place of internship comes in. So if you have somebody who's done internship year 2, year 3, sometimes they're so skilled and they've really done the work hands-on, and they're able to hit the ground running if they do get the opportunity. Okay, so who else? I can't see hands up. I don't want to have to keep calling people. Okay, Ajibola, you're ready to talk to us? After Ajibola, we'll go on to Oshoke.
Just to piggyback off what Sumaila has just said, he started out by saying something about the migration of talents, and that is the nightmare of every HR professional
right now.
2 years, and COVID has seemingly just sped up that process. Beyond the economic push for people to seek for a better life, COVID has actually opened a lot of people's eyes to the fact that they have skills that are actually easily used elsewhere. During COVID, a lot of people took a lot of qualifying certifications, and they're realizing that they can sit at home and actually work. So what that means is that for people like us, even as of the moment you're trying to identify the talent and you're trying to hire, you don't necessarily have to have those processes in person. I have had situations where people have actually been onboarded and they haven't had any physical interactions. Sometimes if you're applying for a job abroad, beyond just the online Teams meetings or the Zoom interview process, you sit behind a computer and it takes your biometrics to be sure that you are who you say you are. And the whole vetting process is actually different. So again, from the business standpoint, Your clients are not necessarily looking for paper invoices anymore. They want to be able to log in and see what their utilization is, and they want to see all the data that you have mined for them that helps them to make better decisions for their business. So what does that mean for people like us, HR people? We have to find people who have these skills and have more analytical, and they're able to use analytical tools. We're not necessarily looking out for people who finish school with a first class, speaking to what Ismaila is talking about, or so much experience. You can have a whiz kid who actually hasn't been through the four walls of a university and has actually acquired these skills by doing a lot of these certifications, internships, and all that. So what does that mean for us HR people? We have to be very, very flexible now in our approach. The conventional method no longer applies. Things like the migration, speaking more towards the migration of skills. You hire somebody this month, and then the next month you find out that they actually have been processing the migration to Canada and it's only just come through. Or who's not going to jump at a chance to move his entire family to the so-called abroad, as we like to call it here.
Yeah, abroad.
So what has that pushed for someone like my team to do is that we have had to reactivate our internship program, because at least the internship program, it guarantees you homegrown talent, and you can guarantee that at least they'll be with you for the next 3 to 5 years at the very, at least if you're being realistic. And then you then have to struggle with, how do you engage these young minds, really? First of all, nobody wants to come in a physical Monday to Friday schedule. Your contracts have to change in that you have to afford them that flexibility, because now it's no longer how physically present you are in the office, but how much you get done whilst you're logged on online is about productivity. How do you measure that productivity? I would be reaching out to my friend in Seamless HR and saying, get me a tool that helps me to, manage performance, track performance better, So it's a lot of change for us to embrace in such a short space of time. We have to look at how our jobs are changing. I no longer have administrative staff that are just pushing paper. If you don't know how to spool data and analyze data, and if you don't know how to come to me with solutions to a problem, and I have not much use for you, because now I'm looking for people who are able to identify a problem as well as think of at least 1 or 2 solutions before they bring it to my desk. So
exactly.
Our demands of our clients, of our service providers are different. That's from a client perspective. Our demands from the demands of the candidate that you're trying to attract is quite different now. The demands of your staff is quite different, in the benefits that we offer. We no longer, because they're no longer here physically, they're asking you, look, what's your value proposition for me? Because now the opportunities are out there for me to just jump ship and even move abroad. So, okay, and now we're having to negotiate. Okay, if you do move abroad, can you commit to 5 hours a day and then I pay you in the foreign exchange rate? So again, we're having to open our minds to these new changes, whether we like it or not, is here.
I like this. I like you have opened up a lot that people hear hush hush, but they've not heard from HR that it's true, it's a reality. Thank you, Samaila, for pushing the HR to open up to us what they're really experiencing. And now it's a totally different ball game. Yes, Nkemdilim, I can't wait to hear you give your perspective on this.
Thank you so much. So I think one of the areas as well, just to add to what the previous speakers have said, is how we have to also think about, I guess, developing our talent, right? So learning and development has changed completely as well, and how organizations have to start looking at learning and development and how you even deliver that learning and development, right? So more and more organizations are starting to use LMS systems, learning management systems, to actually deliver their learning and development, where they have plans, that the talent that they've hired has to go through, right? And I really love what Ajibola said about reactivating the internship program, because I think that is also one of the ways to start building your talent pipeline. The truth is that if we don't invest in junior talent, we'll never have senior talent, right? And when you look at, there was a Google and Accenture report that was published earlier in the year about developers across Africa. And the biggest problem for devs with 1 to 3 years of experience is that they can't find a job, right? They can't find a job because no one wants them. And this is a really big shame, because if we don't employ these guys, they're never going to be senior devs, right? Or as Samila said, they're just going to go somewhere else to get the experience. And by the time they've gone somewhere else, we can't pay them anymore, right? As a small business, you just need to start looking at the exchange rate. If you're a very lazy developer, right, and you work 100 hours a month, charging $10 an hour, that's $1,000 in Naira, that's 610,000 Naira. You haven't worked full 8.5-hour days, right? Some people work 100 hours a week. You are working 100 hours a month. So we need to reevaluate, right? And this is entry level, because $10 an hour is nothing out there, right? So I think those are the things that we as organizations really need to start looking at. How do you compensate talent, right? Talent wants to grow, talent wants to learn. It's not just about money, right? How do you create that culture? How do you create that environment where they can learn, where they can thrive, where they're working on stuff that will catapult them 5 years ahead, right? That is how you have to start looking at your talent, especially your junior talent. How do you empower them to have opportunities to work on big projects that they won't have anywhere else, right? Because then they will weigh, okay, fine, I'll take less pay, but this opportunity is massive because I will use this as my stepping stone, right? So I think instead of just, having them do sort of like the junior work, get them to be shadowing people that are doing more advanced and more senior work. And that also means that we have to have teams that are structured in a way that we can accommodate these juniors, right? Because if your team is not structured and you don't have a structured internship program, then you hire this junior person and they will be bored within the first day, right? Because you don't have work for them. And then they will leave because they're like, okay, fine, I've now spent all my time doing other courses and I've done this, I've done that, but I'm not actually working, right? Or they will have multiple jobs, because that's another thing that we're also seeing, where there are people who, they have like 3 jobs that they're doing just in order for them to actually make up the money that they're looking for, right? So they collect 200K here, 150K here, and another 200K there. And then they get to the same 600 and something, right? And this is happening over and over again, right? And, we've seen dev teams completely fall apart in terms of productivity simply because they're working 3 jobs, right? And it's who supervises the best, who puts more pressure, who calls them, and who has, sort of tells them, okay, you need to have a meeting, you need to do this, you need to do that, in order for them to, be productive. So even the way that we engage when it comes to virtual working has to be very strategic, right? And I think those are things that people in HR should really be thinking about, right? How do you make sure that the workload is appropriate for the type of engagement that you're looking for? How do you make sure that you have teams that are still together, right? Because communication now becomes so somewhat easier, but also much, much harder because you're not sitting in the same space, right? And it means that you have to be much more intentional about how you manage, more intentional about how you communicate, how you share information, right? And that means that your managers need very different skills than they needed just 2 years ago. So who are you, are you upskilling in a very strategic manner, or are you just sitting there and sort of saying, oh, my HR is hiring new people? That's great, but you haven't equipped the people who don't know how to manage virtually with those skills, right? So I think there's a lot in this, area that is happening. And for me, it's a very exciting space. And I'm constantly, sort of looking at webinars and sort of information around hybrid work and around sort of how you manage virtual teams, right? Because that is just simply the reality. No one wants to come to work anymore.
Great, Nkemdilim. I hear you say it's an exciting time for you. For some people, it's the scariest time ever. So we're going to come back to that. So people are like, is she for real? She's excited. So we'll look at Oshoke. Oshoke, please, sorry, I missed you. You were supposed to speak before now. So let's hear your insights.
That's fine. And I was giggling at what Nkemdilim was saying because reminding me of a board committee meeting I sat in. And as you all well know, NIBS is owned by all the banks in Nigeria, right? And the Central Bank of Nigeria, where, and I won't mention the person's name, accused me, and this is before the great exodus of great migration of Nigerian talent elsewhere, accused me, perhaps because I came from the US to Nigeria, of being the reason behind why my team experienced the most exodus out of the company to Canada, US, to Ireland, Nigeria, before the Great Exodus, of being the reason behind why. What I simply thought was, well, in my team, what I do is I don't BS people, right? And I raise the standard so much where I'm not looking at as people as resources, but as people. And so as people, I'm saying you must demand more respect from your supervisor and from the organization, right? Yeah. You must demand more respect for yourself and for your talent, right? And so I would actually advocate to my team, if I cannot adequately mentor you, guide you, and develop a career, what are you doing here? I spend a lot of time with my team, educating them, exposing them to the opportunities that I had as a 16-year-old when I began working in corporate America. And that was why I could be chief risk officer at the age that I was. And for me, it was, a lot of my teammates who now moved abroad have said, look, Ushika, these things you said to us really opened our eyes. And that's why we made this move. And in making this move, we now realize that, yes, you're right. It's important for my managers to actually know their job and not just hire somebody to do their work because they've gotten there by virtue of time spent in a role or the usual nepotism, right? It's important that I'm in an organization where I truly am valued for my results and not because I keep a seat warm, right? And it's funny how COVID has accelerated the stubbornness we have in our African culture, but I still dare say, and I'm sure this also exists elsewhere, I'm not quite sure the audience is here, but I still dare say that you still have, and that's why I was giggling at, Kendall's comments, you still have folks in HR, in management who are stubborn in the dark ages, right? They still want to remain in pre-COVID. You know what I mean? Like, no, when are you all coming back to the office? No, you don't hear people complaining about the millennials. Oh, they're so this, they're so that. And it's like, so for me, I'm like, complaining, right? More young Africans, more young Nigerians are just going to simply move abroad or simply just not work for you, or simply, like she mentioned, they'll take that job, right, and have 4 other jobs until you realize, wait a minute, right? Shouldn't I be paying for results versus, anyway, let me pause. As you can tell, I was giggling because there was also, in Kendall's comments were also kind of like setting me on fire, just remembering some of my experiences I was having. And for me, what I've experienced as a joy is what's happening right now. And it is very exciting. I think sometimes until people can get angry before they recognize it really is a problem. So I think until executives, until businesses become angry about the great exodus, they're not going to pay attention to what any of us here are saying, right? It just sounds like great Zoom talk, right? But then when the HR folks go back to their real life, they return back to status quo. Now on internship, just real quickly, I find that there are some great consulting companies, one of which I've worked with before, that had as a matter of principle, they wouldn't hire you if you have more than 1 or 2 years of experience in another company. They want to hire you right out of university, right out of school, so that they don't waste so much time trying to, reverse brainwash the nonsense and bad habits you've learned. I'm also that too as well. In my own startup, and I also do that too as well. And it names. I would look for not experience, but expertise. Right? Is your brain done? I don't care whether you've had this bad practice in the last 40 years. It's useless. It's bad practice. I'm looking for whether are you switched on? Right? Do you actually have the aptitude and the mental capacity? Do you have the heart to want to learn, to want to actually produce results? Then the person was really, really senior, right? But quite frankly, a waste of time. So it shouldn't be, it'll be a mistake if the mentors of internships here are taking for the internships of the past. Because I've also engaged these individuals that went to universities in Nigeria and elsewhere, had internships, and for crying out loud, learned nothing, quite frankly, right? So it's not just about having a program labeled internship, right? It's about having a program where I'm not focused on your experience, I'm not focused on your age. I always say, if I didn't have the opportunities I had in corporate America at age 16, I wouldn't be where I am today. It needs to be an internship that's focused on, do you have the interest? Because we're interested in, that's when learning starts, right? Then do you have the mental aptitude to be able to pick up concepts? Again, once there's interest and when there's money behind it, a lot of times, that learning can progress really fast. That's what our internships really need to be about. So if I'm bringing this so-called inexperienced people, but really bright. And I'm working with two of them right now. I would love to mention names, but I just really won't. Who time and time again always demonstrate to me that it's not about the experience you've got. It's about your mental acumen. It's about your aptitude, right? It's about your interest and willingness and desire. And then the internship or mentorship is now my willingness to expose you to the kind of work you would otherwise have not had the the chance to be exposed to because someone's counting your years of experience. I'll pause on that.
Thank you so much. You're so passionate about what you're saying that you were just spilling them all out. It was difficult for me to catch some of them, but thank you so much. There's a lot to learn here. And that now brings me to the HR guys. I know that you have a lot in your hands now, right now, because even in my industry, we keep hearing complaints. These millennials, these Gen Zs, they don't want to learn. They don't want to be put in a box. They have the way they want to do things. Those days we had the stereotype. If you're coming in, you have to make a first class, you have to have very nice hair. But now you see people with kinky hair and they have earphones on. But men, they are creatives. They're doing things. So how is recruitment now in the IT industry? All of you are experts in your field and you have a say. I would like your insight, but I'll start with the HR people. What do you look for? You need people in the industry. What are you looking for? A first class, a 2-1, somebody who read computer science. I had a country head in Oracle who read food technology, and she was absolutely fantastic. So it opened my mind. You don't have to read computer science to be in the IT industry. True or true? True. Okay, so Grace. Yes, let's start with Grace, Ajibola, and then every other person will have to tell me, because people are hungry out there. How did you get to where you are, and how can we get into this industry?
Fantastic. So one good thing that has happened to, that I can say has happened to a lot of young people in spite of how our country or our situation is today is the fact that regardless of what you come out with or graduate with from school, you can always relearn and you can always recreate yourself. So that speaks to you having a certain type of degree before you can practice a certain type of profession. I mean, I don't have an MBA. I did not study personnel relations personnel management or industrial relations, but I'm here. For us, and this comes as a result of always reviewing what we do. You, as in the 21st century, as a HR professional, you can't just sit on your R's and expect that what worked for you yesterday, and I mean literally yesterday, will still work for you today. I mean, there's a lot of japa going on. So in light of all of these things, you need to, we actually had a conversation about japa, like literally.
Grace, sorry, this japa, someone like me, I will understand. I'm sure Ajibola will understand. Nkemdele, I'm not sure whether you understand japa. So Grace, you're going to break it down. Oshoke may not understand japa. So
japa means, just this mass exodus of young people, mass exodus of young people to Canada, Europe, and other places for, a better life. So for us, what we're, in terms of hiring, it's very important that number one, you're coming with scalable skills. We don't care what it is that you have studied or, where you went to school before, but what you have now, can something be built on it? And that speaks to what Oshoke mentioned earlier. How willing are you? Because when there is willingness, magic happens. A lot of times, and it's not just, it's regardless of the age. Trust me, age has nothing to do with this. If you're not willing to pivot or, add some new type of skills, then there is no point. And then what are you bringing to the table in terms of your mental acuity? So we're looking at critical thinking skills. Was it Nkemdele that mentioned, or Jibola who mentioned, don't come to me with the problem, come to me with the solution.
Critical
so
thinking,
you must be able
solution.
to solve problems. You must be able to observe, okay, this is not going as well as we can. Let me think. Bring 3 things at least to the table. I tell my team, don't talk to me if you're coming to tell me what the problem is, because I can see just the way you can see. If you're coming to me, come with at least 3 solutions, and then we'll brainstorm. Choose the one that we can start with. Nobody's perfect. We don't have all the answers. We try it. If it doesn't work, we try another one. And that's where agility comes into play. And then
agility.
Yes. How well can you identify and use data? You don't need to be a certified data analyst before you can actually pull things. Okay, I've realized that on Tuesdays, XYZ people come to the office from certain departments. Can we do something on Tuesdays that will help drive team bonding, that will help drive employee engagement, since that is the day that unofficially people have decided to be coming into the office? You know, how well can you look at those little things and present, because data is the bedrock of everything. It's data that we use to make decisions that affect people, that affect the business. And if you're able to show that you know how to catch this data and analyze it, and of course, the more you do it, the better you become at it. That's something to look at. And then grit, especially if you're going to work with a startup, and there are many startups now. You want to break into the tech industry, it might be easier for you to join a startup than to join an Oracle, you know, without experience, except if you're going through some sort of internship or graduate trainee route that your startup may not necessarily have, or have an established one. You must be able to you must have grit. And grit is something that, you know, will benefit you, not just even in the workplace, but life. How well can you put in the hours to get the results that you need? It's about productivity, but productivity does not just come by saying, okay, I'm working from home, but I'll be productive. How well can you deep dive? Are you excellent? And for us at Senior HR, these are the things that, you know, are embedded in our core values. Don't just come and say, okay, yes, you're a graduate, you're a graduate. So there are hundreds of thousands of graduates. But what are you bringing to the table? Can you help make my life better? If you're going to give me headache because I'm checking your work while I have my own job to do, then I'm sorry, you don't have a place on this table. So for us, those are the 6 things: scalable skills, critical thinking, problem-solving skills, being able to use data, intelligence, and grit. That's it for us on this side.
Fantastic. The table is on fire right now. The HRs are speaking. I like it. You can see Ajibola is also, you know, she's rooting for you. These are the things we need to hear. Let's say it, no holds back. Let's say it as it is. Let's not massage it. Let's say it. These are the things that we need to move to the next level. Yes, Ajibola, over to you. Please, any other person that has something to say, just put your hand up and I'll take it in that order.
So there are 2 things in our rule book at my office here. There's a 80-20 rule that we try to use when we're trying to bring in people. And that is, if you have someone who's got 80% fantastic experience and skills, but they've only got 22%, which is of an attitude requirement, we don't want you. Because what that means is that it will be difficult for other people to work with you. Now, if you got 80% of a great attitude, that meaning you're willing to learn, you're willing to take accountability, you're passionate about wanting to, you know, get results, then we want you here because we know you're trainable.
Trainable.
Okay? So just to add to that, when I say the 80-20 and the 50% genius rule is because we have this understanding here within the company, which is that you can be a genius at anything to a degree of 50% if you just Google it. Yes. So if I wanted to learn how to do, say, for example, brain surgery, I could read up a few things. Now, does that make me a surgeon overnight? No. But at least it ensures that. Now, is anybody going to book me down to go and do a brain surgery on anyone? No. But it also means that if I were in a situation that I needed brain surgery, I would at least have an idea what questions to ask.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the attitude that we're trying to, you know, build around here in our culture and things. So we're not necessarily looking for the most experienced hands anymore, but people that come with the right attitude, they can analyze, they ask questions. So I have a young dude in my team now. He likes, people see us engaging a lot. And they wonder, you know, the old school guys will be like, over Sabi, this guy wants to be, you know, they're like, oh, he just wants to outshine everyone. But you know what? You can tell he so wants to soak up so much knowledge and information. And he's challenging me with even the questions he's asking. Okay. Sometimes it degenerates into an argument. I want to see how long he holds out to what he's actually pushing for. Okay. So again, beyond that, we as managers, beyond being human resource people, managers or people, we have to see ourselves and push ourselves out there as mentors, as coaches, because you have to understand that nobody comes 100% perfect into your work environment. If you're looking for that perfect experienced person, you might get him for a little while, but he's off, he's booked a ticket already, waiting for the day that he gets his visa. So you now need to become somebody who is able to use your soft skills better in engaging people, in motivating them, in inspiring them. I've even gone as far as having my HMO start offering counseling services for people. We now care about their mental health, because if you pile on all this pressure in the workplace, a lot of these young folks, the new guys, are not built to accommodate that pressure. So how do you support them beyond that in making sure that they are in the right frame of mind to be able to do your job? So you're asking them to have a good attitude. You better help them build and sustain that good attitude so that you can keep them for longer.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much. So for the rest people in the panel, I will need you to tell me, okay, I can see your hand up. Who are you looking for? Okay, your hand is not up, or is a thumbs up. Okay. But I need you to still tell me, who is that person that you're looking for? Do you need the person who made a first class? Did the person, for cybersecurity guys, must the person have a degree in cybersecurity? What do the people out there need to be able to get into your space?
So my space is mainly focused on management and cybersecurity, right? There's an excellent documentary by a company called Cybersecurity Ventures, Cybersecurity Magazine. And I will share the link to you to share with your audience.
Yes, please, you can put it in the chat box.
Yeah, and it's called Women Know Cyber. And for me, one of the really exciting things, and it validated my opinion and my position I've had for many years now, right? Which is that there are multiple paths to cybersecurity. There are multiple paths to many things, quite frankly. Right? Even being a brain surgeon. I mean, in the US, you can study English and go to medical school. I was shocked to learn in some other countries that, if English, medical school, not happening, right? Even in my case, for example, sometimes folks get confused and think I was, born being technical. My first degree is actually in communication, organizational communication, nothing to do with technology. I learned the tech world at a home, in a lab in my home, where I would bring my friends in the neighborhood and we would all play and experiment in my home-based lab. My second degree, is an MBA, strategy management. Nothing, in fact, quite frankly, I got that degree because I was told, if you want to come to Nigeria, they love paper. So you need something more than the bachelor's degree. They may not respect your expertise, as a director for cybersecurity, for a critical national infrastructure, right? And I quite frankly saw that, right? And so there are multiple paths. There are multiple paths to cybersecurity. I think what is more important is, what do you want? What's your interest, right? And that's why I talked about it earlier about that this HR language needs more, because sometimes in HR, in fact, in just saying HR, we have disbanded the human element of that, right? Because now it's just HR, and we forget it's actually human resources. And I mean, how dare you call me a resource, right? I'm a person, I'm a people, you know what I mean? So I think, as people first, it's really about, what do you want? Where are your interests? And where interest is, learning can happen. In this domain of cybersecurity, you have aspects that have to do with technology, which, by the way, the aspect of cybersecurity that's technical related is just 25%. 75% of what is the domain of cybersecurity is actually non-technical. It's operational, it's organizational, it's what people do, right? So from that perspective, in cybersecurity, we need people who have interest in communication. We need folks who have interest in sales, in marketing, right? In finance, in HR or talent management, right? Because in cybersecurity is all about protecting data, and data can be in different forms and the different elements to that, right? So there's no one right path to go. I often say that sometimes, right? If I get someone who's too technical, I don't want to bring them on board into a cybersecurity function, right? Because their mind's going to be honing on the 25%. Meanwhile, it's the 75% of cybersecurity that is organizational, that actually informs, like machines don't work by themselves. Even AI can't work by itself, right? We're building an AI threat engine to be the world's first cybersecurity threat catalog, right? And that AI has to rely on what human beings have done first, have done multiple times, hundreds of times, then you write code to then learn that, right? So from that perspective, it has to be, we need to be looking more at people's interests. If I have someone who studied literature, And by the way, I have an internship program running right now where all the most people on there are all writers and lawyers. Why? Because to simplify the domain of cybersecurity, right? Remembering that the audience are human beings, not machines, right? The chief risk officers, the CISOs, the security analysts are human beings, right? And when humans read standards and it doesn't make sense to them, they come across as being ignorant. And ignorance simply means that they don't have an understanding of the domain of the body of knowledge, if you will. So your function actually right now saying, how do we first of all make it so that when I read the standard, it makes sense to me in whatever language, whether that's English, French, Arabic, or or what have you. So we need people coming from very different disciplines, right? For me, the primary thing I'll be looking for is interest. Do you have an interest in this? And if you do, whether you're a Yahoo boy or you're an HR person or you're a writer, I'll take you on board, which I'm doing right now, and I'll take you through that process where you then acquire that knowledge that you then need to match with your interests.
Great. Samaila, I'm going to speak with you next. I'm going to call you on next, but Shoke, there's something I just have to ask you. And you're saying you don't necessarily have to have that degree, so far you have the interest. But I'm thinking, like in Nigeria, you want to be a policymaker, or I want to bring you on board and you don't have an IT certificate. Can the certifications be enough? Or if you don't have the certification and you have the knowledge, oh, you've done this, you've done that, but what proof do we have that you can deliver? Just give us that insight before we move on to Samaila.
That you're qualified, it's your results, right? In my case, I studied communication, how to read and write, how to send message and wasn't back to me. And but before I was age 19, I was already a senior.
Sorry, events, we need to mute Lucy. Lucy Jandwa, please mute her or him, her, kindly mute her, yes.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Please go ahead.
That's fine. So to the extent from what I just said earlier, that's part of where internships are also valuable. Internships are not only just to learn and train. Internships can also be to validate one's expertise, right? So I would say that period that we call probation, let's scrap that, or let's evolve that into the internship or the trial period, right? And in that trial period are the projects that we can work on that actually demonstrate their expertise, right? So, but Linda, I'm going to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek. For all the professors and PhDs we have in country writing policy, why look at the rankings? Just go and Google Nigeria's ranking on cybersecurity posture or IT inclusion, additional inclusion, and see where we are. And then come back and ask the question again, whether is it the degree you have, the PhD you have, how has that translated in the Nigerian economy into our level of whether it's a talent deficit in cybersecurity or IT, or whether it's a level of our maturity in cybersecurity regulations or even in IT regulations, or whether it's even when we even have regulations, what is the extent of how these regulations have actually played out in real life implementation? I won't tell you what it is, just Google it, right? And then you see what it is. That's a quick way to answer that question. Say, if you don't have the aptitude for something and you don't have the passion for it, right? It doesn't matter the degree or certification you have, right? You will be quite useless, right? Y Combinator tells you that for startups, what they're looking for is, do you have the aptitude first? And then do you have the passion? Not asking for anything else, right? How many startup CEOs were first experienced individuals in the businesses that they started, right? So, I mean, I'm not trying to just dismiss what you're saying, but I'm trying to just give actual real life examples in Nigeria, in the US, they exist everywhere, to just say, we need to trump that idea around that. We have people that Nigeria doesn't lack for qualified people, right? In our economy, and see where we are. Enough said.
Thank you so much. I'm glad I have HR people here. Grace, I can see your hand up, but I need Samaila to bring his insights into this. Yes, Samaila. Yes, I can't wait to hear you. You'll be smiling.
There's some background
noise
around here. I'm just hoping you're not hearing all the noise around me.
No, I think you're fine.
I mean, Shoke has said everything. I'm not even sure I have much to add, and I've been smiling because, like, I'm agreeing. I'm giving in terms of what he's saying. we're having companies like, I think even Apple, Microsoft, they're now reducing their academic requirements, okay? And we're having, in fact, I personally know someone, and I've pitched him to a couple, I don't want to mention, well, I've pitched him to a couple big firms that I know the heads of cyber in, and I'm like, this guy hasn't gone to school, but I've seen what he's done behind the scenes. So someone will get a contract and they will give him to do it. So he can't go and bid for the contract because he's a nobody by Nigerian standards. But the big guys, people ahead of me self in the industry will get the contracts and give this guy and get the job done. But when I give his CV to people and I say, consider this guy, look at what he has done, look at the qualifications he has, just doesn't have the degree. And like, the HR guys won't really like this. So, company policy, I mean, so a lot has to change with the mentality, and I just love virtually everything Osheke has said, because things need to change. I know some places are changing, to be honest, and I'm really I've enjoyed the contributions from Grace and Achibola. It shows that we have people that are thinking, that understand that things change. I mean, when we talk about policies, human beings that write policy. So what stops it from changing or from adapting with the times? So I'm very glad we have people like this that are 40. I don't want to add too much because Osheke has really said everything. Degrees are not a requirement. Certifications to an extent can show competence, but it's not always the case. Okay. If you have people that are very good at passing exams, they would pass almost any certification. You give them a month or two to prepare. Okay, the exams that I even have passed, that I know I didn't go in depth into the content. But if you understand how to screen out wrong answers and you have a multiple choice exam, you are most likely going to get up to 70, 80%, which is like the usual cutoff mark most of our exams. So certifications are good, but not everyone learns the actual content. They don't go. Some people will just cover 50%, and it's enough to give or take from experience and other knowledge just pass the exam. So what is important is results, and that's why Osheke said that the internships should give that chance to check out people's skills, give them projects, give them tasks to do. We're able to do it, and it's not bad if someone needs to go on Google to brush up something or to know something, because everybody can know everything. Okay, so I think the use of internships needs to be refined, and I see places like America, UK, where they have apprenticeships, where you come in straight from high school sometimes without any degree, or are fresh from university, and they train you for a year, 2 years. I've seen one that's as long as 6 years. I think that's Jaguar Land Rover. I can't remember at the moment. One of those UK. They have a long, and when you come out, they give you a degree as long as some other qualifications to show that you are an expert in that area. Because I mean, if they train you for 6 years in one thing, except you are as dull as can be, you have to come out as an expert. Okay, so I think we need to refine how we are doing our things here. We need to learn. There are things that are working out there. Can we learn those things? I know we'll have some issues in terms of maybe funding, kind of, so we can't really compete with Oyibo when it comes to money. I mean, exchange rate is a big problem. So I understand all those things. But there are many people that are willing to stay here. There are quite a lot that are not even considering living in the country. So can we in our HR places, in our findings, can we filter them out? I love that you guys now are looking at behavior, looking at fit. Are they going to be compatible in our team? Do they like our work culture? Will they come here and be grumbling? Will they come here and be unmotivated or unsatisfied? Those are good things to look out for as an HR person. I'm really glad that those things have been brought up by our HR guys here today. So like I said, I don't want to add too much. A lot has already been said. So
thank you so much, Samaila. I will pick a few things from what you said. Not every youth is interested in the Jackpot story, so some are going to remain here. And then I'm not going to advocate for the HR people, but there's a conversation we've had that there must be a criteria for sieving out people, whether it's fair or it's not fair. We're over 200 million Nigerians. We have over how many universities? I think the largest number of universities in Africa, or maybe, I don't know, private universities. So there just has to be a benchmark, whether it's fair or it's not fair. HR guys, I'm giving it to you, Grace. How do you manage this?
When you say benchmark for sieving out people, is it in the recruitment process or still?
Yes, getting people into the system. So we're still talking now about what are the skills, what are you looking for? Because some will say, I know that first class is not the best, but I just need to use a benchmark. I know that reading engineering is not the best, or computer science, but I just need to have a benchmark. I can't bring in 1 million people or 1,000 people. Sorry to say, if you advertise for 2 positions, you will get 200 CVs, right? So you need to have something.
Okay, so that's the tricky part, because what happens is most times we use the traditional qualifiers, which is a degree, first degree in social sciences, or X number of years of working experience. But I think
sorry, do you still use age? Do you still use age?
Absolutely not.
Oh, really?
I mean, absolutely not. So, I mean, just to piggyback on what Samaila had said. Oh no, you can't use gender. No. I mean, what kind? That's a no-no. That is a no-no. I mean, we're even trying to be more we may not achieve 50-50 representation, but we're trying to increase the representation of the less represented gender. So, I mean, it's not, we're not looking at it from the reverse. But thinking back on what Samaila had mentioned, and again, you're asking about age, we once had, and this is where we as human resources need to be able and open enough to change whatever mindset that we entered the world of work with. We once had an 18-year-old that wanted to work with us. This was about, 2 years ago or so. And my initial reaction or response was, he's not a graduate. He's not a graduate. And had this conversation back and forth with my tech people, my CTO. And at the end of the day, really and truly, great. What is he bringing to the table? What is he coming to do? Can he do it? Is he meeting those? Yes. What is age? Nothing. He's hired. So that is one thing that I actually raised up my hand for. And then the fact that even as, because we're talking about shortlisting for entry level, but what about the mid-level people? Samaila just made an important point. Not everybody is going to leave Nigeria. A lot of people are staying, no matter what, they're going to stay here. They'd rather be here than go be second-class citizens elsewhere. And those people are the ones that will rise through the ranks or get new jobs as managers or directors. How are we selecting those people? How are we selecting them? Even the ones that are remaining in our organization, how are we sure that a manager is managing his or her people well? Do they have the soft skills? Are they empathetic enough? Are they intuitive? You know, I mean, this is really personal for me because I had a feedback session with my team a couple of months ago, and it was humbling but refreshing to get the feedback that I was given. You know, I could be very tough and perfectionist and I just want the results. But what about the human being behind the results? And it was good to see, like, you know what, okay, great, maybe we can change some things here and there. And am I getting better results now? Absolutely. And what is the better result for me? That you're sane, you're happy, you're healthy, and you're able to still do the work from wherever you are. So I think that's something that we also need to look at to see beyond the entry-level guys. The entry-level guys, you can still mold them. But when someone is coming at a particular level, what are you looking for? For us, it is, you have to just be able to, imbibe our culture and promote it. If you're coming with a lot of, I think it was Ashoka that said something like, you're coming with all the experiences, the technical know-how, but what about the people know-how? Can you manage your team and get the best from them? So for us, everybody, depending on the job and the level, you would go through some form of aptitude test. Again, it's the aptitude. It has nothing to do with your qualifications. You go through that aptitude test and there's a benchmark result. If you fall below the benchmark result, then we may not be able to proceed with that conversation. But you know, that meeting that benchmark, then we know that at least you've got the basic critical thinking, problem-solving skills that we need for a start. Then we can continue the conversation. So for us, that's how we look at it. And we also try to reflect that even in our product, where on the recruitment system, you have a place where you can either adopt our own aptitude test or upload your own aptitude test, create your benchmark, and you know that, okay, at a certain level, you're dropping these people off, but from this level, you can still continue the recruitment process with them. So I'll mute my mic now.
Okay. Have we lost?
I think we have.
Okay. I was going to say something after you regarding the requirements. You know, we like to chase paper a lot in this country, and that's why people spend so many years going to school, they have a PhD, and they've never stepped in an office, and they want to operate in the corporate sector. So, and what I observed is because we're in the IT field, it's almost like we wake up tomorrow morning and you find out that there's a new technology out there. And now you're scrambling for how to even understand it. And then you have this huge population of bright minds who, at the drop of a hat, they can get a job with Google. I've had so many staff move off to Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So at some point, we were pitching that as, some kind of a badge that, people have left us or whatever, but really, these companies have used us as a harvesting ground for picking talents. And so we had to stop doing that. So when it comes to requirements, fine, it's okay to set some kind of minimum requirement. What do I mean by that? You don't necessarily have to say you have to have a first degree in computer engineering or whatever. For goodness sakes, just put it. If it's a university degree or first level degree that you want, you don't necessarily have to be so narrow-minded as to say you have to have computer engineering, electronics and electrical or whatever engineering, because we know for a fact that a lot of people who studied computer science in Nigeria never even saw a laptop, even until they got to their final year. We know it. So I wouldn't necessarily go out there and define specifically and say you must have this particular qualification, because we know even with the ones who have it, they don't have the depth of knowledge that you are trying to hire for. So I wouldn't restrict defining it so much in that sense. When it comes to age, I'm sorry to say, let's be realistic here. If you have somebody who's pushing a certain age, it's not necessarily about the number, but you really are trying to engage with their mind. So what do I mean? It might surprise some of you, I am in my mid-40s. But if I act like the average mid-40 person out there, a lot of them are in the civil service. And we know what happens when you approach the civil service. You have one guy that wants to carry a file from here and it tells you come back in 3 days' time. And the whole process is frustrating. So you have to be able to think and relate with these young minds and be able to match them at their level of, mental development, and engage them in understanding the aspirations of the guy who is 23 years old, spends all his time online trying to learn some programming language and things. How do you engage with somebody like that? Are you going to tell him because he doesn't have a BSc in computer engineering, you can't hire him? So like I said, our policies need to change. How we organize our work needs to change. For me, our internship program allows us to bring these people into beyond after you pass your internship program. You're absorbed into our entry-level positions anyways. So we're not hiring experienced hands for our entry-level positions. That's a new policy that we've adopted. All our entry-level guys are our interns. Okay, but there's something I think we're not really speaking about here. It's when it comes to the policy behind some of the things we're doing. The policy doesn't support us hiring non-graduates. We have laws that are still pretty much, we still have to catch up. The horse is bolted. Our leaders who are making our laws, if you want to continue pretending that we have any labor laws in this country, yeah, it's more limiting than enabling. So you have the laws that say you have to have an NYSC beyond your first degree, you have to go somewhere in Bandapara and, you do all the, shenanigans and then come back to apply for a job. Now, in the private sector, for me, I'm not necessarily chasing somebody that has an NYSC. I'm looking for someone that has the attitude and the skills. But at some point, when is the law going to be able to catch up with the flexibilities that we need to be able to engage and attract and engage talents? Can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So then that is the major problem. It's a problem, and it cuts across all facets of human resources management in Nigeria. But I mean, let me mute my mic.
The policy is the policy. So those are the things I was trying to ask you, because if somebody is sharp, he's 18, he can do the programming, and you employ him, are you going to put him on the same salary scale with a degree holder that has done his NYSC? You will have issues. Okay, and Kemdelim, she's out to tell us something. Yes, go ahead.
Of course, you put him on the same thing. He's solving the same problems for you and generating the same value for you. Why will you pay him less? Why will you pay him less? Why?
Beautiful. HR.
Why will you? I think we need to really rethink talent, right? And I think, you know, it really boils down to what is the strategy that you use to hire, right? And what is it that you want to achieve, right? So your hiring has to be aligned with your business goals. If your hiring and recruitment and retention strategies are not aligned with your business goals, you're going to be dead in the water in the next 5 years. That's just the truth of it, right? So if you start thinking about, oh, okay, well, this guy is young, I'm going to pay him peanuts, he will leave. He knows his worth. That is the thing with this generation, right? They're not waiting for you to give them peanuts and feel, they're not looking at the job as, oh, I'm so grateful that I have this job. No, you should be grateful that you have me because I know how hot I am. And tomorrow I'm going to go and learn how to code for Web3, right? By the time I know Rust and I know all sorts of different blockchain-based technologies and I can write code in those, I'm going to be earning $200,000 a year, right? So who are you to tell me that you want to pay me 50K? It's not possible, right? So we must really rethink how we think about talent because talent is no longer local. Talent is global.
Global.
Right? And when we start thinking about talent being global, maybe then fear will catch us, right? And maybe then we will start paying technology talent at the right at the right level, right? The truth is that we're underpaying people significantly, right? Like I said, a very lazy person can earn 610,000 naira easily by freelancing, right? By doing 100 hours a month at $10. So you now want to take a hot shot and pay him less than that when he knows that he will sleep the whole day, do 3 or 4 hours of coding, wake up, and he's collecting 610K. You want to pay him less because he's young. What are you doing for your organization? I talked about user behavior driving trends earlier, right? And driving technology. It's the same in this, right? When it's no longer an employer's market, it's an employee's market, right? And we're seeing this all over the world. It's not just a Nigerian problem, right? So you have the Great Resignation all across, you know, the globe. You even have Beyonce making songs about it. And the truth is that people are not ready for the status quo anymore. People want freedom, right? Freedom of location, freedom of even their role and how they execute it, right? They want more responsibilities, but they want the freedom that comes with it. So I think we really just need to rethink our organizations. If not, we are not future-proof, right? And these discussions have to happen at board level, right? Because when we're not having these discussions at board level, HR can be as innovative as they want, they're not going to get the right support, right? So that has to become sort of a norm, right? Because that is where strategy is decided, that is where policies are decided. And I think there has to be really a re-education of board members, a re-education of C-level like management as well, right? To understand how do we hire and how do we actually create policies around human capital, right? And really start thinking more around, like Oshoke said, people, right? So you think more around people and culture than you think of them as resources, right? Because the minute that you address them or treat them as resources, they will behave like one and they will be out of the door, right? Because they know their value and they know they can get much more somewhere else. So you have to stop thinking about it as we're doing them a favor. Oh, my organization is so great and so fantastic. There are 5 million organizations like yours out there, right? Because you're no longer local. So you may be fantastic in Lagos, but guess what? They can work in Accra, they can work in Singapore, they can work in Bangkok, they can work in New Zealand, Australia, anywhere. And they can still live in Nigeria, right? So if they're really so you know, bound to, I want to be here because maybe my family is here or whatever it is, they can be here and they can work remote. Most of these organizations really don't care where you are, right? As long as you're paying tax in the jurisdiction that they're in, right? And policies are changing there too, right? Where even big organizations are saying, okay, work anywhere in the world, right? As long as you're paying your tax and you're doing the right things, we're fine with it. So I think when it comes to pay, we have to really reset our mindset. Yeah, no, well, up the game, but also reset the mindset, right? We're not paying for years of experience. You can have somebody, like, I think as an employer, I've learned that lesson many, many times, right? You hire someone who has 5 years of experience and you're so happy, like, yes, finally I have this person that will be able to do it and understand. Then they come in and they're so rubbish, and your junior guys that are earning half of it can do that job in their sleep. And you're like, okay, no, maybe I actually need to promote them and invest in them, right? And I think that's really what's so important, right? Just because you're senior and maybe you've been able to jump from one organization to another and you've increased your salary that way doesn't determine the skill level and the value that you add to the organization. So for me, the way we hire and the way we determine salaries, it's based on the skill and the value that you deliver. It has nothing to do with, you can have 10 years of experience. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. I'm not going to pay you for not knowing what you're doing. Maybe somebody else will, but we definitely won't, right? So we need to determine, do you know what you're doing before we even have that discussion about how much are we going to pay you, right?
Fantastic.
And the minute that you have a young person that, knows what they're doing and they're super hot, why are you now saying, oh, I'm going to pay them less, or I'm, going to devalue the work that they're doing, right? We also want people to be economically stable and contribute to the economy, right? And be able to have spending power. That is how we build our businesses, right? If people don't have spending power to patronize businesses, there will be no businesses. So we must also make sure that they actually have the money in their pockets, right? And that maybe means that we need to reevaluate how much we're charging clients, the type of clients we have, in order to attract bigger sums of money as well into the organizations, right? So that's why I was talking about business strategy has to align with that, sort of people and culture part. But you definitely have to pay people well.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Linda,
yes, Oshoke, please.
Yeah, there's something you asked that I think we've, so there's a little bit of like a bubble that we're in. And what I mean is that there's a bit of, there's a lot of agreement amongst all of us, right? But you still seem to have this question around, so how do I filter? Because I've done the same, when I work in Nigerian companies, one application, you get 10,000 CVs, you're like, oh, this is real. How do I go through all of this, right? So let me explain something. And a lot of hiring managers will not like what I'm about to say. The reason you have that challenge, right, is because it has to do with the skill level and the expertise level of the hiring manager. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're not that skilled, that's when you start to need the degree to filter, right? If the person in HR isn't as well skilled in understanding what is the need of the business, what is the need of the hiring manager, in fact, is this hiring manager the right hiring manager? Should you even be a hiring manager? Because there's a bit of where, it takes one to know one. I've taken individuals, I can, names at InterSwitch and at NIBS, that HR claimed were unqualified, right? That destroyed their KPI, literally destroyed their KPIs, right? Left the organization, went elsewhere, and are now senior managers, right? Doing fantastically well. In some cases, these were individuals that HR almost made them not believe in themselves, except that, as you can tell, I'm a bit of a fighter, right? And I was able to push and say, no, HR, when the ones you hire comes, I suffer, you don't, because my standards are high, right? So that issue you're talking about is not it's not an issue of filtering or an issue of qualifications, right? By the way, a quick segue, it's not also saying that certifications or degrees don't matter. They do matter, but what matters more, it is the learning that happens as a result of wanting to get certified or get a degree. But like Samila mentioned, there's a system of, we have here where you can get the degree without much learning ever happening, right? So now, so back to the point, it is that if I have an HR who doesn't truly understand what we're looking for, the skill, the level of the ability, the expertise, then they now need first-class degrees and whatever else you have, right? So you have a problem where there's an entire generation of incompetence, not ignorance, like drastic incompetence, right? And you have incompetence in positions of authority trying to identify who to hire. Of course, you're going to have a hard time trying to filter. And then they say, can you imagine when I joined one company, somebody asked me, how many years experience do you have post-call? And I was like, post-call? I started working in corporate America at age 16. What is post-call? She wouldn't let me go. She wouldn't let me buy until I said, okay, I know what you mean. But my mind was, when I was working, you were in school. When I was building results in corporate America, I mean, for some really big name companies, you were still in school. How dare you ask me about my post experience? It's nonsense. So, Linda, the problem you are actually identifying is not one of how do I filter or I have too many applicants. It's one of that the hiring managers we have are largely incompetent. If they were actually as skilled and had the right expert level, they would understand how to identify already how to partner with HR first to then identify those individuals even across tens of thousands of applications. I am not that smart, and I've done it in Nigeria, not in America. In Nigeria, I've seen it work. There are individuals who stand, as an example. So let's take out of here. I really appreciate that point you're trying to make. That, well, I become overwhelmed, and it almost seems like we're all in this bubble and we're not facing the reality of Nigeria. Well, the reality of Nigeria is that the problem is not about the number of applicants, right? It's the hiring managers who don't have the right skill level or the right expertise, who should not be hiring managers, basically.
Thank you so much, Oshoke. We identify a lot of things, but unfortunately, it's the reality of our situation right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm shocked that it's almost 2 o'clock. We have done over 1.5 hours. When the conversation is interesting, it's heated, we're getting a lot of things. I don't know where time just goes. I still have a number of questions that I want to ask. But Grace, I'm going to give you a chance, but I'm going to ask this question so that we'll take it round in circles. In your industry, in IT industry, what do you see is the next big thing? What is going to catch fire? There was the internet age those days. There was there's so much that I'm hearing. I hear of IoT, I hear of Internet of Things, big data. I'm going to have different answers, but people are hungry out there. From your insight, what is the next big thing? Where are we going with IT? Yeah, Grace, are we ready? Are you ready for me?
Okay, yes.
I had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Linda. Okay, so what I wanted to say just on the back of what Oshoke had said was, the truth is, I think in most companies, the way we do HR is like, HR is the be all and, end all of all things. Human resources is not your human resources manager is not your hiring manager. As a matter of fact, in similar, we're thinking even the way we write job descriptions. Why is your HR person writing a job description when there's somebody in that role that should actually write the job description? Of course, they'll work with HR because HR will bring in the people element of it. But the core function, what the person will be doing day to day, how it will be done, which will also determine how much the person should be paid. Because I know the work, I know the rudiments of the work. So HR will guide the recruitment process and give an assessment based on the behavior and people elements. But when it comes to technical competence, the hiring manager who is like the technical lead or the engineering manager is the one that calls the shop. HR cannot say, oh no, don't hire that person. He does not have a test class. What do you know about the test class in this? So that I think when we would think about it in that way, then it makes it easier because HR is not everything. They're not the final arbiter of all things people in the organization. So just to add to what Oshoke has said, for me, the next big thing is I think disruptions around how we use and spend money. We're seeing it now, but more things were still coming. I mean, I was having a fantastic conversation with someone yesterday who's working in one of these big banks, and he was talking about the different technologies that they're innovating and partnering with different people within Africa, with Canada, and I'm like, whoa. Some people may still end up losing their jobs because they just cannot even, fill these roles. We have bots now responding to you. And for questions, for every, as I understood it, for a question that a bot is not able to answer or explain, the product designers or managers go back with the tech team and sort of like improve that bot's competencies to be able to answer that question in future if it's asked, I'm even saying he or she for a robot. But that's where we are. I think they call this RPAs or something like that. So I think that we'll still see more disruptions. The banking industry is going to be hit big time. Money will not be what we see as money again. I mean, I still don't understand the sense behind being able to acquire and spend money that I can't see with my eyes. But it has caught fire and it's spreading. So I think that's one area that is going to be interesting to watch in the future.
Thank you, Grace. Eyes on it. Eyes on it. Thank you very much. Please, because we are pressed for time, I'll say we take 2 minutes each, because there are still some things I need you guys to spill out before we let you go. I don't know if there's going to be a part 2, but people are hungry. Questions are popping up and they want to know a number of things. So who goes next? What's the next big thing happening in IT or in your industry? What should people look out for? I want to see the hands up.
I'll quickly say something.
Yes, please.
That allows you to do a lot of modeling, programming. Enables us to access data in real time. Anything around analytics, anything around security, anything that allows you to. I mean, for how many years now we've been hiring people who have certain hacking skills, because every day, almost every second, somebody's actually trying to hack into your business emails. And, you know, I can imagine a lot of CEOs here have had experiences of such. So you want the jobs of the future are the jobs that help us to mitigate against those current problems we have and even be able to preempt you know, how those problems even mutate into other things, kind of like the way COVID is mutating into other things. And now you have to be able to preempt. Now we're even trying to create problems and write programs that solve them ahead of time. The engineering, the mobile apps development sector is still going to have a lot of, you know, activities and skills being built around those areas. And I know that Nigeria actually has a lot of talents that are most probably even exploring into this area already, but we are not doing enough to identify those people at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your insight. Brilliant. Yes, the security guys, what's the future? What should people be looking at? What are the jobs? If you want me to coin it, because the youths are there. HR professionals must also be ready to take on new skills. Okay, yes, somebody's telling you HR guys. Okay, that's from Grace. Okay, I can hear that. So let's move on to the security guys. What is the job for the future? What should people be learning?
Let me go first. Since I think I'm more based in Nigeria, I think the jobs, what people are learning today, they're still going to need to keep learning them for the foreseeable future. And the reason is simple. For things to change, the technology itself has to change. So in as much as we're having things like cloud coming on board, we're having 5G, we're having blockchain, people learning how to do smart contracts and other things like that, there are still the basics that must still be done. We're having a situation where people are very good at using tools. Not many people are very good with the ones and zeros. And so when there's a big issue that requires that basic level of configuration or fixing, where the talent is scarce. So I feel like every skill is still relevant, okay? It's just that some skills have to, let's say, what's the word? Evolve to accept the new technology that are coming on board. So I remember, was it I'm trying to remember the company where they had an issue with their access control. And so they needed someone to literally break into the I can't remember the companies in America. They had to break into like the server room to go and manually try and resolve the whole problem. And it was a big issue. I think it happened last year. So I can't remember. My point is that there are sometimes that even these our fancy skills may not save us. We need those that learns the coding with the ones that I'm sure someone like Oshike can relate. People that if you give them tools, they're like, this is boring, it's not fun. They want to be able to play with the wires and those kind of things. So I feel like every skill is relevant. So but for sake of emerging technology, there will always be requirements from companies, from startups. So if you look at what the startups are looking for, like we have in the fintech space, in the health tech space, in the edu-tech space, there are skills that are being sought out for things around digital products, anything digital products, whether it's IoT or a software product. Those kind of companies, those kind of products will always require people that can design, that can market, that can build, that can secure. So I feel like everything is still opening up, in my opinion.
What an engaging audience. Thank you so much. Oshoke, I will just hear from you, and then I would like to hear from Kim Delim before we start wrapping up.
Okay, so in terms of what should people be looking out for, and I was just composing a message to respond to Dr. Daniel Buhau and the comments he made, and I'll share that here anyway. I think that, yes, he's right? So people who are passionate and people who, I would also include in that class, who have a lot more interest than they have the opportunity, right, do tend to get filtered out, right? So I think what people should be doing more, not just what looking out for, right, is, I would say, balance, right, or inoculate that passion with intense aptitude, right? So ensure that as much of the passion and vibrancy and energy, or the so-called millennial syndrome, you bring to the table, make sure you're also balancing that with as much intense aptitude and skill and expertise. Because at the end of the day, if you treat yourself, so let me call you HR, right? Know you're a person, treat yourself as a business. Serious business people will pay for your skill, right? You think Elon Musk is a nice guy, or the guy from Apple? These are guys who are called, names I won't mention here, right? I met with a startup co-founder recently, kind of like as a PM for my own startup, who said, look, I have this concern where I have a reputation, right, as being a kind of no-nonsense person. I'm not understanding, I don't know how to do business over here. And he said, look, that's also a blessing to you as well, right? Because then now people know that's your brand. They know that you know your stuff, right? You know what I really want to say, right? You know your stuff. So that's just what I would say for others in general. When you come with this passion, right, and it's not only owned, because I'm not a millennial, it's not only owned by those who are millennials, right? Make sure you also balance that, or I would say inoculate it with as much, with very intense aptitude, so that the person who filters you out, it's their loss. In fact, you now then begin to hire employers, right? What's my skill, right? And then when you're putting that, say, look, I want to earn, in fact, it won't even be what you are now asking for. Because your skill is so intense, you're going to have companies, even in Nigeria, right, falling over their feet to give you money. It's when that passion doesn't come with a commensurate aptitude that sometimes it can be challenging. That should not be the case, because what we should be doing as managers, as employers, is to say, because the passion is there, I can now then redirect that to specific aptitudes of interest for my business. But again, because overwhelmingly you now always meet people like us on this panel as your hiring managers or your HR business partners, come to that table with as much passion. That same level of passion, put it into the aptitude, and don't worry. Like Ken didn't say, you will make $10 an hour and sit pretty in Lagos, and not even be worried about moving anywhere, because it's just too sweet.
Thank you so much. Last but not the least, I'll take a side from Kendelim, and then we will be wrapping up this interesting conversation. Yes, Kendelim.
Thank you, Linda. I think Web3 for me is really where I see the skills of the future. I think there's going to be a complete shift, and that will go across everything, right? So across how marketing is done, how HR is being handled. It will go across what security also means, right? There'll be a redefinition of cybersecurity, because suddenly you're now protecting virtual assets, right? And how do you do that? And you have smart contracts. But what we've been seeing in that space as well is that they're not as secure as you think, right? And sometimes there's like millions of dollars of money that is suddenly locked away. It hasn't been stolen, but it's no longer accessible because the smart contract has locked it away and nobody can open it, right? So I think that the skills that are required there, right, are very, very different. And, one of the speakers had said that banking will, completely be disrupted. So that to me is not going to happen through the fintechs that we're seeing, right? The banking industry is going to be disrupted by decentralized finance. And when you look at that space and what's happening in that space and what's already happening today in that space in terms of how organizations are, creating value, and the amount of transactions they're doing, right? There's a company that does liquid staking for Ethereum, and they have transaction volumes of $3 billion a month, right? When you look at those numbers, right, and they're just like 12 months old. You look at those numbers, you know that there is something that is completely different that is coming, right? And there's still a lot of definition that is missing in that space. There's still a lot of customer experience and, you know, sort of product design that is missing in that space. So to me, if I was, you know, early 20s or even in my, you know, late teens, that is what I would jump on, and I would go and learn those skills and immerse myself and volunteer in those areas, right? There are lots of projects that are popping up. They're all looking for devs, all looking for community managers, all looking for people who can create content, who can create NFTs, who can create the concepts and you know, sort of the new experiences around it, right? So I think that we're going to see a massive, you know, sort of shift in the next few years when it actually becomes extremely mainstream, right? So now it's still sort of like not as mainstream in most communities, but when you look at what is even just happening in that DeFi space and in the NFT space, you see that it is becoming mainstream. More and more people are having these conversations, right, that are not tech people, but just early investors. There are people who are, you know, sort of really, really young people driving those conversations, driving how business is being done, right? Tokenization is going to become sort of like a standard, right? Ownership is going to change, right? People are not going to own things anymore because you can own a little bit of something and still have the same access and this. So it's not just the technology that is evolving, right? It's the business models. And I think that's really where, for me, the interest lies, right? So I spend my time studying business models of the future because I want to understand how are those business models evolving and how do you future-proof your business to make sure that you're still relevant in the next 5 to 10 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish this conversation could go on for a longer period because we're getting a lot of fallout, but I'm grateful for your time. Regenesis Business School is grateful that you've taken time out to share your wealth of experience. One more question I would have asked, but I think this panel, your faces will just answer it. I was like, is this IT industry male dominated? That's the question people would have asked. Is it? Really? I would have said, well, with a panel discussion of 2 to 3, you know, maybe it's female dominated or it's balanced.
No,
maybe I should just be
it's still very much male dominated. Most of the time I'm the only woman. Yeah, most of the time I'm the only woman in the room. And it's been like that the last 15 years. So don't really see that changing much.
Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. I mean, Jibara and I in HR, so if you take out both of us, I mean, in terms of being the only one in the room with Samaila and it's still
I've been in the HR industry, in the IT industry. I started out from there supporting the banks, and it was, you know, I kept hearing Obirin when I come into the office or into a customer site and they see the woman Obirin, that's a lady, you know, like you don't have the intellectual command. I'm like, but I was in the class with the guys and all that. So it's still like that, right? Yeah. But for the young ladies that are coming up, I want to have Nkemdilim say something because it's very important for us to know. And for the guys too that are technical people, I want you to say something to this next generation, to the guys, to the ladies, and it's going to really mean a lot for someone out there. Yes, Nkemdilim.
All right, so I'm going to speak to the young generation, but then also to organizations and HR managers, right? I think to the young people or the young ladies that are listening, right? This is the future. If you're planning a career that doesn't involve technology, just know that you're not going to earn anything in the next 10 years. And whether you're a lawyer, whether you're, you know, I don't know, a creative, you will need technology skills in order to actually deliver the services or products that you're creating, right? And that's just the truth of it. Or technology will take your job. So you need to make sure that you upskill and that you actually understand the trends in this industry and, you know, key into it. There's so many opportunities for women. I almost find that it's easier for a woman to actually get into tech and be successful in tech than for a guy because there are not many of us, right? And because there are a lot of hiring managers that are looking at D&I quotas where they want to hire women, right? But the truth is that women are not applying. Women are not studying these subjects, right? So we need to change it from even primary school, right? We need to get girls to be more confident, to understand that tech is not for boys. And that happens at home, right? It's how you parent. It's what you introduce your children to. Let your children code. Let them play with Scratch. Let them play with Roblox Studio, right? Let them start actually engaging with technology from a very young age, because that is the future. If you don't have those skills, you're not going to be able to be employed in the future. Now, to organizations, I think we really need to rethink how we ensure that women don't drop out at some point, right? So you see it a lot of the time. You have a lot of sort of young women that are there and they're excited. They're there with the boys, then they get married, have one child, and they're out of the door, right? Simply because you've not created that environment that is, you know, suitable and sustainable for them, right? So when we even think about, you know, sort of maternity leave, right? Why are we not talking about paternity leave as well, right? Give her some support. She can't be the only one doing this stuff and thinking about this stuff and taking time off. Let the guy take time off too, right? So that at the end of the day, she can come back faster, more stable in her mind, right? These are the things that make women stay at home at some point, right? Or just say, you know what, I'm not going to do the thing where I need to be online 24/7 or where I need to, you know, sort of code round the clock. Let me just go and do one easier job, right? So they may stay in tech, but they're not going to have technical roles, right? You'll find them in project management, you'll find them in product management and stuff like that. To me, those are not sort of core technical roles. And I think that comes from how organizations are not creating enabling environments, right? Where there simply are restrictions. And I think we have to have conversations with senior women to understand what are those things that you had to fight through, right? And have conversations with the junior women. What are the concerns that you have, right? What are the problems that you face every single day, right? Is it that you walk into an organization and, you know, they're looking for Mr. Nkem instead of me, right? That happens to me all the time. They're like, where's Mr. Nkem? And I said, he doesn't exist, but I'm here. So can we have this meeting, right? And just also thinking about how do you build confidence in women so that they can do that, right? Because other people will be shaking their boots when they're suddenly looking for Mr. Nkem. I mean, I don't care. You can think I'm the PA, the secretary, whoever. At the end of the day, you're still going to come and negotiate with me, right? So it's to make sure that we, first of all, have role models within the organizations, right? It's really, really hard to be the only woman and to still feel like, okay, well, I want to go to the top, right? Because everybody around you is also going to tell you, why are you trying so hard? And then, you know, there's the boys club, right? They go drinking after work. You're not there.
You have to go home.
Yeah. Right? So, or you're not invited to the drinks, right? So it's not even that you want to go home. Maybe you two, you want to drink, but the invitation
Can I invite him?
Come, right? So I think that there's a lot that has to happen in terms of how we restructure our organizations, and that has to come from, again, from the board level, right? I think we need policies from that strategic board level that ensure that we have a lot more women, right? And that we have a mandate for how many women we have to have in management, how many women we have to have in senior, junior, mid-level management, right? In order to even make the organization look appealing to that young woman that you're trying to get in, right? Because once she comes in and she's like, all these men here, what am I doing here, right? I can't see one person that looks like me. Why am I here? And she goes. And the truth is that when you look at startups, the majority of them are still, you know, the founding team, all boys, all men, right? So how do you then fit in as a woman? How do you even want to be there? Because you're like, okay, they don't understand me, I don't understand them. We're talking to different languages, and I'm not really sure if I can add much value. Let me go somewhere where there are more people like me. So I think organizations have a lot of work to do.
Thank you so much, Nkemdili. My producer has been telling me, cut. I think this is the longest webinar I've ever run, and I don't feel like stopping, maybe because it's my industry as well, but it's been absolutely fantastic. I'm sorry I can't take any more, but I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude. I like your passion. I like the ideas that you've brought in. You've really given it to us as it is, raw, unscripted, unedited, just as you have it. I am very grateful. And Regenesis Business School says, thank you. We'll be sending you formal emails and then trying to get to know you better. Thank you very much. In every Nigerian language I know, I want to say Dalunu, Oshe, what else? Samaila, help me. How do I say it?
Mungode.
Mungode, Mungode. Yes, which one have I not said? Please, just thank you very much. And in local parlance, now well done. Oh, thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Linda, for having us. Thank you, Regina.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
You all on my LinkedIn. Please look out for
Recording
my
stopped.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Please connect on LinkedIn. It's very important. Let's all do the connection and let's keep the conversation going after now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.